Welcome back to Prime Time Lawmakers. The state budget is the only legislation the General Assembly is required to pass during its 40-day session every year. That's to ensure state departments and services are funded and functioning. In actuality, there are two budgets, often called the big budget and the little budget. The big budget, or general appropriation bill, is the spending bill that will go into effect in the coming fiscal year, which begins in July 2012, and it's based on projected state revenues, the taxes the state thinks it will collect from citizens and businesses. The little budget, or the supplemental budget, corrects the budget for the current fiscal year after actual revenues are known. You could say it fixes the big budget. Confused? Well, you're not alone. That's just the tip of the iceberg. That's why tonight I'm joined by Alan Essig, Executive Director of the Georgia Budget and Policy Institute, a nonprofit organization, and Kelly McCutchen, President of the Georgia Public Policy Foundation, an independent think tank. It's great to have you both with us. You're both experts on this. Let's see if we can boil it down without using too many numbers this evening. Obviously, we're still dealing with a billion or so, a couple of billion less than we had when times were good. And Alan, I'll start with you. Is this the new austerity now? Is this the new reality, getting by on less? Unless
the economy improves tremendously in the next couple of years, with a modest revenue growth that's projected of 4, 5, 6%, there's not a lot of money left over to put the money back that was cut previously. There was about $930 million of new revenues in the governor's 2013 budget, which sounds like a lot of money until you realize that between retirement costs, funding enrollment growth in education, 100% funding Medicaid, the normal costs of state government, healthcare costs and so forth, ate up the vast majority of that money. And the governor had in addition, we still had 2% cuts. Even with the new revenues, we still had 2% cuts in many agencies, including the university system and the technical school system. Mm-hmm. So it's a very difficult situation going forward, and there's no reason to think that next year or the year after is going to be any different. Governor projects a $320 million shortfall in 2014. So it's a problem.
Is it that painful, Kelly, or are we getting used to it? I mean, is there just like, families have to budget, they get used to not going to the movies 3 times a week, but they only go once or twice maybe? What do you think?
Well, the pain has mainly been last year and the year before that. We've made the cuts. This is the new normal. And according to state economists, the revenues are not going to get back to where they used to be anytime soon. So what we have to do is be innovative and creative in how we can reform how we're spending our state's money, just like the criminal justice reform that you were talking about this morning. Mm-hmm. There are hundreds of millions of dollars that we can save while keeping the streets safe and making sure we're smart on crime, just not tough on crime.
One of the ways that you improve the atmosphere around the state, and obviously you should spend money. Another way is making it easier for business to do business here. The competitive initiative, the governor on down are pushing like this. Will we get into a point, maybe even spending less on education, where we will not be spending enough money to make money, to attract new businesses and that sort of thing? Kelly, let's start with you on that.
Well, education is absolutely very important. We talk a lot about income inequality in our country, but one thing I think we can all agree on is economic opportunity, and it starts with education. In our economy today, if you don't have a good quality education, you're going to struggle for your entire life. And I think it's the state's role to ensure that our most poor and disadvantaged students have that opportunity. And that's what the school choice rally was about today. The constitutional amendment is we have students that don't have that opportunity today because of the Supreme Court ruling. That's got to change. If we don't want to put up walls around each political district in our state just when technology is about ready to fundamentally change education. It's a great opportunity for the state.
How do you see that, Alan?
Well, I think there's the state needs to make certain investments, and the problem with the budget cuts in the last 2 or 3 years and the inability of the state to put back those cuts now or probably in the future, unless we do something about revenues, is that we're not able to make those investments. I mean, business community talks about needing a well-trained workforce. They talk about needing infrastructure. Our technical college system has 71% of their faculty are part-time or adjunct, which puts their accreditation in danger. And that's, the technical college system may be one of the best things we have for economic development, for future growth.
Try to get into one these days.
And so the not investing in those really important foundations of economic development, economic growth, is going to be a problem for the state in the future.
Both of you budget experts. Is education the biggest category when you get right down to it?
Absolutely. It's historically always been over 50%.
And that goes from everything from paying teachers to
pre-K through the university system.
Okay, through the universities, which is a different cat as well with the Board of Regents involved. They can always charge higher fees when you get right down to it. What's the state's responsibility there? I mean, are we spending enough money on the higher education side?
Well, again, it's both higher education and K-12. The difference is they can raise their own money, which has its own problems. One of the reasons the HOPE scholarship program is in danger like it is, and the lack of lottery funds, is the budget cuts have led to huge increases in tuition, which puts more pressure on that. Local school districts, to make up the money, need to increase property taxes, which has an equity issue because some of the poorer school districts don't have the same tax base that the wealthier districts have. So there are consequences to the cuts in these areas.
As far as making the state more competitive, is deregulation the way to go if you can't spend more money to bring more business in?
Well, flexibility. I think small businesses create so many of the jobs in our country, and certainly here in Georgia. I think that the speaker is right to focus on small business, and I would tell legislators, now is the time to be bold on tax reform. I know Al and I both have worked on that a long time. Our families and our small businesses mainly pay personal income tax, and there are very few times in our history of our state where you have an opportunity to make fundamental changes to our tax code. I'd love to see us address that this session.
Would the energy sales tax, doing away with that, and as a throughput, be one of the best ways to spend $100 million?
Well, that's from the business community perspective, that seems to be the #1 priority is to put the exemption on sales tax for energy for manufacturers, and there's a policy argument to do that. The question's always been is how you pay for it. Because the economic benefit is something you get down the line. You have an immediate budget hit when the revenues aren't there. And I think that is what the governor's working on now. One of the reasons I think the bill hasn't been dropped yet is to figure out how to package something to keep it revenue neutral, which I think is incredibly important.
Thanks both joining us. We'll get back to you, and we'll talk about some new sources of revenue maybe the next time we come in. Okay?
Thank you, Scott.
Thanks very much for being here.